Okay, today we have Hillbilly 1, and he's actually showing his face today, which is a bit unusual, but I think most people sort of know. And there's our little cat, and that one is Mauser. But we're talking about a couple of East India Company pistol and rifle today. And here we are, we're going to have him talk about the East India Company and the pistol. Is that right, Hillbilly 1?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, well, the East India Company was established as a trading company. Yeah. Got a charter quite early in the piece, I think from Queen Elizabeth I. And as I say, they were a trading company. They went to India and they bought lots of spices and rice and all sorts of Indian products back to England, but they also sold a lot of English goods out to the Indians. But it was a pretty rugged place then, so the trading posts needed protection, so they started their own army, the East India Company Army.
And a few people have sort of heard what the Hudson?
Very similar to the Hudson Bay Trading Company out of Canada, North America.
Yeah, and you would have seen a couple of programs on the East, you know, on the Hudson Bay. I think they should probably do a series or something about the East India Company, because they're quite interesting on their own, aren't they, Steve?
Yeah.
Oh, Hillbilly 1.
They pop up in the Pirates of the Caribbean too.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about a couple of East India Company guns that we're putting on Trade Me today, and these are the pistol and the gun. So we'll just get Hillbilly 1 to talk about them. Okay. So now I'm focusing on your hands.
Yeah, so this pistol dates from about 1785. It would originally have been a flintlock. You can tell that by these extra holes here. There would have been a folding frizzen and holes for the spring which operated the frizzen. But at some stage it's been converted to percussion, which was quite common. They didn't throw them away just because they were slightly obsolete. There's good traces of the rampant lion on the lock plate.
And we can just see the rampant lion just in there. There's some traces of it, which you can see. Hopefully I'll get a better picture of it, but you can see the lion just in there. And this part is an add-on, is it correct, Steve?
Yeah. Originally the barrel would have just had a hole in the side when it was a flintlock. So they've either brazed on a bolster or replaced the breech plug altogether. One or the other, but it's been done a long time ago. Probably around 1835, 40 at the latest.
1835, 40 roughly, when it was converted to this percussion, which was quite early on the percussion, because they had a better fire thing on them. Was it what they were, or they worked faster, or something? I remember you telling me something.
The ignition was faster.
Yeah, the ignition was faster, but the loading was about the same.
No, this is much faster too.
Yeah, okay.
Both the barrels were loaded the same for flint and percussion, but with the flintlock you had to fold the frizzen back. I think we did a new land pistol in one other video.
Yeah.
We folded the frizzen back. You had to put powder in the pan, then put the frizzen back down, pull the trigger, and the flint would hit the frizzen, push it out of the way, make sparks, and it would eventually burn through to the main charge.
Yeah, where this is a lot faster.
These are a lot faster, yeah. You loaded your main barrel, cock that, put a percussion cap on there, and you're in business. Yeah, way faster to load.
Yeah. So land wars, a lot faster, a lot better, and right sort of stuck in. More action were more commonly used in the land wars were percussion guns to the flintlock, were they? Or
here,
the musket wars were not as big as the land wars?
The musket wars were, they were fairly extensive. That was all intertribal.
Yeah.
They were mostly flintlocks.
And flintlocks were intertribal, mean Māoris fighting Māoris.
Yeah.
More so than British fighting Māoris.
Yeah. I mean, if the Waikato tribes could get a whole lot of trade muskets or brown besses, they'd come down and, knock the hell out of Te Ātiawa down here because they didn't have them.
Yeah. We are based in Taranaki, where a lot of fighting was going on, and it's good to talk about, And that's where I'm living now, is in Taranaki. Yeah, so I'm learning all the time, and this man teaches me all the time. I eventually get into these videos and do them on my own at some stage. Yeah.
Yeah, so this will be 65 caliber, which was standard for a handgun at the time. It cocks as it should, but the hammer's quite loose on the shaft. That can easily be peened. The original nipples been pummeled and rusted.
Could you repair this, or if a customer wanted this repaired? Or it is too much of a mission, or it's best just to left it on its own?
No, I could do it, but you could check whether this is loaded, put some heat on there, and with an easy out you'd get that old nipple out if you wanted.
But sometimes people like to leave it like the way it is and like how it's found.
Well, it's been like this a long time.
Yeah, it's been like a long time. Great, okay.
As I say, the hammer's a bit loose on the shaft.
The trigger's still working? I can't remember.
Yeah, no.
It still works.
Sort of does what it should.
Yeah. Okay, we're just going to talk about the condition of this thing, and you said something about the end of it.
Well, this has been around a long time. In the Flintlock period, they had this is called a skull crusher butt.
Skull crusher. So they used to use these after they've fired them once and knock on the head of a opposition person, whether you know, and it's after they fired their shot, it was quicker to say if there was another guy charging, they'd use this as a skull crusher or whack them on the head.
Yeah, well, as we said just a bit earlier, flintlocks were quite slow to reload, and if there's a real scrap going on around you, or if it was a bit windy or wet, yeah, flintlocks were a bit hopeless. So you fired your one shot, and then this became a club.
Yep.
And yeah, quite an effective, wicked one at that.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Well, we'll have to talk about the club. You know, it's got a little bit of a ball out of there, which knocks you on the head. I'm not sure if that is original to it, but it sort of seems too original to me, the screw.
Oh, it looks like it.
It looks like it. You can see by the wear of all these screws around it, it's sort of got that patina and feel of that they've been original to the gun.
Yeah, these all look original to me.
Yeah, they're quite fine, and I don't know, they'd be quite hard to screw off because of the wear and the feel of them. So I think the gun is pretty complete with the screws and with the trigger guard and with the original screws on it. This one could possibly... No, it looks original to me as well. And then there's a pin here.
Over the years, people take them out with the wrong screwdrivers and you know, burr them out a bit.
Burr them out a little bit, but that don't look too bad. Yeah.
This has been used as a club. You can see the timber broken out here.
Yeah.
That's from that brass cap.
They also used them probably as a hammer too, didn't they, at some stage? Yeah.
Probably, though, yeah.
Little nicks and
That's
chips.
not ideal
and, yeah.
for... Yeah.
But it talks something. It talks a little bit about its history and how it is. We've got a couple of filler marks in here, haven't we, Steve? Which is probably an old filler mark just up here. Is that right?
There's some old filler from a long time ago.
Yeah.
Sometimes the lock plate would get a bit of rust, and the rust would break down the timber. Yeah, so there's a wee bit of filler there.
Yeah.
Been there a long time by the look of it.
Yeah, we can see there, but if we go to the condition of it, we've got a bit of shadowing in, but it's not too bad. And we go to the other side there, Steve.
Yep.
And there was another filler mark you can see there, just at the other side there.
It's patched there.
Yep.
I don't know if it's PK chewing gum. I think it's older than that.
PKU? Oh, yeah. Oh, I would say so. Yeah, definitely not chewing gum. Yeah, I don't know what they filled it with, but have you got any ideas, Steve? They might have had a mix of wood and powder and glue or something like that? Or
they often use natural resins, natural tree resins that would set firmly.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Yeah. It's got a few old age splits, which is...
Yep, we can see that in there. Yep. But it is whatever, 230, 40 years old.
Well, as I say, I would pick this being new in about 1785.
Yeah. Okay.
It's had a replacement rod.
Replacement rod. You can see a couple of the little nicks out of it, but probably it looked like a bit of an old bolt to me, but possibly, I don't know.
Yeah, and the swivel's been replaced.
Swivel's been replaced.
Original, yeah.
We try to talk about these guns as how we see them. Also, this bit you believe could be a replacement too, yeah. Mr. Hillbilly Steve? Oh.
Yeah, no, well, this would originally have been a solid brass nose cap, or close to solid. But but this one's just a folded bit of brass around there, which clearly is not original. I guess it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to finish anything about that gun, or is it pretty much stamped? Would you got your
We've got reasonably clear proof marks here.
Yeah, as you can see. Yeah, and they're original to the gun, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all good.
And there'd be marks underneath this, or
maybe maker's marks. There won't be proof marks.
We haven't pulled this off. It's got a hunk of metal through here, which is probably added onto it at a later date. I would imagine. Would you say that correct?
I'm not sure without pulling it out.
Yeah, they sort of put pins and springs in it. We haven't pulled it out. We just thought we'd leave it as it is. It is what it is. Yeah.
I mean, it shows its age. Yeah. I mean, it just really speaks of history. It's done a lot of work.
I sort of there see a number, sort of something there anyway, but possibly a number of the company that was in. I'm not sure, but I can sort of
probably a unit marking.
A unit marking or something.
You know, that might signify it was in New Delhi or something.
Yeah.
But the East India Company, as I say, very interesting. They were dissolved in the mid
1850s.
Around mid-Victorian period, or early Victorian period, and they were absorbed into the British Army.
And a few of them would have come to New Zealand and fought in the land wars as they did. They were a mixture of Indians plus British people that were in the India Company, East India Company. They saw a lot of war, saw a lot of action, and they were sort of, you know, like the Hudson sort of thing, as we can tell. That's what they were.
This gun's been in New Zealand a long time.
Yeah.
So it's quite likely it may have been used in the land wars.
Yeah. Land wars, or possibly even the early musket wars.
Possibly, although I think this conversion's been done a long time ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
But the musket wars, I think, went to 1845 from memory, or 1840, I think. Musket wars, you know, as he said, were mostly Māoris fighting Māoris.
Yeah. Mostly Flintlock.
Yeah. That's pretty much that gun sort of spread out. You can see by the you know, the marks on it. That's that gun anyway. I think we should move to the pistol now. We've been going for 12 minutes.
Yep.
I mean the rifle. Yep. So that's that gun anyway. So we've got a few photographs of that as well, you know.
Well, it's a real character piece, you know. It's not mint. But, you know, it's seen a lot of hard use.
A great wall hanger for someone who hasn't got a licence and wants to display it on the wall.
And I'd be astounded if it hasn't actually killed someone.
Yeah.
You know, and probably over 100 years of use.
Yeah. Okay. So now we're going to move to an East India Company rifle, which we've got on the ground here as well. Not too much dirt on the carpet. I did vacuum it. I spilt something on there the other day. So here we got the East India Company musket, which is a little bit better markings on this thing, and the right rampant line is quite prominent on the butt plate, isn't it? Oh no, not the butt plate, the lock plate. Plate, yes.
Yeah. So your classic early Enfield styled hammer, early bun nut on there.
And what year is this East India rifle? It's quite a long one, as you can see. So it's sort of the 3-bander sort of musket sort of length, but this is, you call it a pattern, don't you, or a year this come out in it, Steve?
The brown besses were used well into the 1830s. Then in 1839 they wanted to go to the percussion system.
Yep.
So they bought out a musket called the Pattern 39, and that used leftover flintlock parts, but they were percussion. Then in 1842 they decided to make a new pattern just made purely as a percussion.
Yeah.
And that's what this is. It's a Pattern 42. A
Pattern 42. Late musket wars or early. So these probably these saw service in New Zealand.
Not officially, but some of them would have ended up out here.
Yeah, not officially, but they ended up out here, and with the dissolvement of those, I would believe quite a few of these guns, they are in New Zealand. They're not a rare gun, but they are a really nice gun for a wall hanger in somebody's house. and they got their own sort of history with them. So we'll just talk about this rifle. Do you call it rifle or musket?
No, musket.
Musket. We can talk.
Yeah.
Okay. I've mucked that up. Yeah.
Yeah, so as I said, the brown besses were used well into the 1830s. Then they did the pattern 39, the pattern 42, but they used the same barrel as the brown bess basically, which is a 10 gauge 75 caliber.
10 gauge, which is basically, sorry, I've got my cigarette in this, but sort of, yeah, maybe that finger sort of fits in there.
Well, it's 75 cal.
Yeah, 75 cal.
Yeah, it's got its original square section ramrod.
It's nice with it.
Yeah, nice.
And a couple of nice
the
swivels.
Early type of
swivel. So we've got swivel on both ends.
Yep.
We've got a few markings over here, which are East India Company markings or Indian markings.
Indian or maybe Afghanistan. The East India Company got around a lot.
Yep. So we're sort of going on we're going just to look up the underneath side of it, what we've got on there. So it's pretty much together with the original ramrod, as he said.
This was fairly standard at the period, that type of sling swivel.
Would have had a nice leather sling on it instead of a Slade Wallace.
Yeah, no, they came quite a bit later. It would have been a leather sling.
Yeah.
And at this,
pins, or we should talk about the pins, or I don't know, I'm going on.
At this,
pins.
Yeah, at this period,
we've got a pin here, we've got a pin there, and the pins sort of there, and then a pin over here.
Yep, the barrels had little loops soldered on underneath, and then they were held with either pins or flat wedges. They'd done that for quite a number of years. I think the 3-band Enfield, which came out in 1853, was the first one to use barrel bands.
And then that's quite interesting as well, like you're talking about the pistol with this sort of marking on it as well, Mr. Hillbilly 1, and we're talking about the rust that has caused this, correct?
Yeah.
And with the filler that was in that other one?
Yeah, I don't know what's caused this, but there is no filler, so that's probably an original bit of damage from well over 100 years ago.
Oh, well over, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, 150 years ago, wouldn't it?
Yeah. There's some markings on the butt here.
Yeah, we've got D36, 38, and then also got a 44 under it. Yep. So just the different engagements or regiments this has been in. I also see a mark just there as well. I can just sort of basically make out a mark there as well. So there's plenty of markings all over this wood that sort of adds to the history of this musket.
Some more markings here.
On the butt plate.
That actually looks like a 2/92.
Yeah.
To me, it actually looks English rather than...
With a bit of research, you maybe can find out a little bit of information. Also got a stamp over here, which is probably a something.
It looks like a D over a 7.
A D over a 7, which is sort of relates to this D mark, so maybe a regimental mark as well. Yeah. Got another mark over the top here.
No, they'll be inspection or quality marks. We've got a proof mark here.
Proof mark there.
Yeah,
and there'd be some marks underneath underneath the barrel as well, wouldn't they?
Maybe manufacturers, but yeah. As I said, at this period they're doing all the proof marks on the top.
And how's the cocking? How's this rifle cocking into your sort of view? 1, 2. So we've got cock at half cock and full cock.
Yep.
What was again? I've got sort of half forgotten. It's got a good nipple on it. As we said, we like nipples. Yeah, and we've talked about that before. But then we've got a little slit in the top of it. Is that to release the spark, is it?
Often with percussion caps, they would sort of blow to bits when you fired them. And they had this little slot, so hopefully any bits of copper would fly out that way and not into your face.
Yeah.
But no, the locking mechanism, the lock was all working well.
And why did they have a half cock and full cock again? Just so I can remember that.
Well, half cock, yeah, you shouldn't be able to pull the trigger on half cock. That's basically a safety. Yep. So you'd load the musket, you put it on half cock, put your percussion cap on the nipple, and then draw it back to full cock, ready to go. Yeah. They didn't like putting the percussion cap on when it was on full cock.
And we don't dry fire these. They do wreck them, don't they?
Well, you saw that on the pistol, that nipple's been
munted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is actually in really presentable condition for a musket of its age. Very little rusting on the metalwork. There's
only one sight, one distance they used to fire this at, or you can really see. Is it?
Yeah, well, that's typical of the muskets of the time.
Yeah. So they used to fire to what sort of range would these sort of be a killing range, say?
Oh, 50 yards.
50 yards?
Yeah.
Which isn't very far.
It was literally hit or miss at 100 yards.
Hit or miss.
Yeah.
And still do damage at 100 yards.
Yeah, and the earlier Brown Besses didn't have a rear sight at all, so, you know, this was a new improved thing in its day.
Can we just turn it over and we'll just talk about the other side and move on from that, and then we'll pretty much wrap the gun up, I think. Or, oh, sorry, I've mucked it up. Not the rifle, the gun, it's a musket. So I must always say that. Quite a heavy guard, isn't it, on these?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's very typical of the
and very nice looking on the wall, I must say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're a great looking
And
thing.
this brass bit here was for a saddle ring?
The side plate.
Side plate, or no saddle ring on these, eh? Because they're not a saddle gun, are they?
No, well, they're a big long musket. Yeah, these were here principally to hold the screws, which go through and hold the lock plate. On the later Enfield pattern 53s, they just had a little round brass thing there and there. They did away with the side plate altogether.
And they look like original.
I think they definitely are.
100% original. And you can see where the pins have come through here. Pin, all the way up right up to the thing. And these, what sort of bayonet did these fit?
That would have just taken a socket bayonet.
Yeah, the socket bayonet.
Which slid over and then locked on the foresight.
Yeah, the foresight's seen a bit of the thing, but it's all there.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's any sort of mismatched parts on this at all. Do you agree, Hillbilly one?
I think it's a really nice, tidy example and all original. There's been a tiny bit of rusting along the barrel channel there, which is fairly typical.
Yeah.
It's got a few
and that rusting there has caused the wood to rot.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Because I remember you sort of speaking that.
Yeah.
So I'm learning all the time as well.
Yeah.
So I'll eventually do these videos on my own when I learn more.
In the rain, the rain would get down in there, and unless they took the barrel out every time and, cleaned under there, you'd get rust along that area there. But with these pinned fore ends, it was quite laborious to pull them apart. And as I think I said, the 1853 Enfield was the first one to have barrel bands, which was a huge advance.
We've got a few. We'll just sort of wrap it up. You think we've talked about it enough there, Mr. Hillbilly?
I think so. Yeah.
You think so? So we're just going to talk about. We've got a few other muskets in here. We're going to be talking at a later date. So we've got them down there. These are all come off a collector, and this was part of his collection. So we've got a few muskets there, a few of that. And I'd just like to, you just moved off it, but I think it's important to talk about this. I'd like to talk about this, and a lot of people don't know about this. Could you just have a quick brief about this cannonball? Because a 56-pounder cannonball is... A 56-pounder was only used in Taranaki, so it really relates to New Zealand. We've got, you're better at Maori than me. So you want to have a quick talk about this cannonball? 56-pounder is the weight, isn't it?
Yeah.
Eh?
Yeah, well, there was a guy called Sergeant Majorum. He wrote a book in the Victorian Times. Very good book, very interesting.
Quite a big...
but he was based in New Plymouth, and he was head of ordnance in the artillery. And then there was a battle looming at Puketakari and Waitara, so they bought two ship's cannon out. And they called them 8-inch guns in those days, because the 56-pounder was approximately 8-inch diameter. So they bought two of those out here, out to Waitara, and then they bombarded Puketakari Pa. They were never used anywhere else in New Zealand as far as I know, so every 56-pounder I've ever come across came from Waitara.
Waitara?
Waitara.
And this is not far from Waitara? This has got a mark on it. Can you say that mark or whatever it is?
Yeah, Onuku Kaitaia.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just on the Waitra bypass, you can look up and see Poki Te Kauri Pa, which they bombarded, but Onuku Kaitaia is, it's just another couple of k's further on, and a lot of these cannonballs overshot Poki Te Kauri and ended up at this pa here.
Yeah, like in the old days I was talking to Hillbilly Steve and they ended up on fence posts and different sorts of things. You know, fence post wasn't at a house, they had two on a fence post,
Yeah,
you know, going into the house. So back in the old days they used to have these, well not old days, but say 50 years ago they used to put them on the lampposts as they found them. They're getting harder to find now. There's not a common cannonball, as because they're only fired here and they're harder to find these days.
Yeah. The farmers hated hitting them with their ploughs.
Yeah, so they probably ditched them or melted them down or buried them again. Yeah, so the farmers' ploughs.
I mean, the ones that were found in like the 1950s and 60s, nobody was really interested.
Yeah. So this is a solid one. They actually had hollow ball ones as well, or it was just solid all the way.
No, the solid ones are designed for smashing down stockades, you know, so the infantry can get into the pa.
Yeah.
But they also had mortar and howitzer shells.
And these sort of, what distance they fire? Just.
These were fired at the pa from approximately 300 yards.
Yeah, 300 yards. So it's a fair way. And they go through many people's legs or bodies or as they travelled, wouldn't they? If they were in the way.
Give you a hell of a bruise.
A hell of a bruise. Yeah, give you a hell of a bruise. And they had hollow ones as well. That were hollow and that weren't a 56 pounder. They were still called a 56 pounder, or
no, because they were hollow, they didn't weigh as much. But they had those with fuses and would fire them over the top of the
and they'd break up. They'd be like shrapnel, like a grenade.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And explode on the ground and full of.
Or in the air.
Yeah, in the air. So so interesting. Yeah, to find out about that. So that's basically about that video. We've gone for 27 minutes. Still an interesting sort of talk. And that is those two, the pistol, East India Company, and East India Company musket, and the cannonball, if you want to say it. It's just a good talk about these three items, and hope you find it interesting. Thank you.
The interesting,
you can carry on.
Yeah. I was going to say the interesting thing about these was they hoped to smash down the palisades of the pa so that the infantry could get in and, you know, do the business.
Yeah.
But the Maori weren't there.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were all in the bush and the swamp around them, and it was pretty much a disaster for the British.
Yeah. It's all good to talk about history. I love the history of the New Zealand land wars and love it. Yeah. Anything else you want to close with, Steve, at all?
No, that's all good.
That's about it.
Yeah.
As you can see, I think we did a few earlier videos on my sword rack and my rack in here and my guns. You know, we're starting to get a bit more. I'd like to hold the sort of amount of stock. It's very hard to find these muskets, starting to find them in New Zealand. But we've got up here, we've got the roll call of Crimea 1854, which my great-great-grandfather was in and got shot in the head there. So this is possibly him on the ground and they're talking to him. But but anyway, Charge the Light Brigade. Oh, not Charge the Light Brigade. The roll call, Crimea 1854 to 1855. My great-great-grandfather was in it. And I've just come across a photograph of the older guy, you know, my great-great-grandfather that died at about 75 years old. And it's really cool to have that above my swords, because that's what I love swords, yeah, but I love muskets as well, yeah. So hopefully I might be able to keep one or two of these. Depends on how much you guys pay for them. Thank you. That's it.
Oh, I think that deserves another run.
That deserves another run. Thank you. Yeah.
No, that's good.
That's good.